The federal agents came at 6 in the morning, knocked on his door, read him his rights while his neighbors watched from their windows. Ethan Moore didn't resist, didn't speak, just stared straight ahead as they put him in handcuffs and led him to the car. And that's when his phone buzzed. One new message. No sender. Just a video file. He opened it sitting in the back of that police car, his hands shaking. The screen went black. Then music started playing, soft, familiar, their wedding song. And then footage began to roll. Him standing at the altar in his tux, smiling, saying his vows. I promise to love you, to honor you, to be faithful to you, for better or worse, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. The footage cut. Now it was him being walked out of his office in handcuffs. Reporters shouting questions, cameras flashing. The vows kept playing in the background. Till death do us part. The video ended with a single sentence typed across the screen. You should have kept your promises. But to understand how a tech entrepreneur ended up in handcuffs with his entire life destroyed, we need to go back. Back to the night it all began. Back to the wedding. On the night she was supposed to become a wife, she became something else entirely. A woman with nothing left to lose. They say your wedding night is the happiest moment of your life. They say it's when two souls unite, when forever begins. But no one tells you what happens when forever dies before midnight. Her name was Olivia Carter, 28 years old, a kindergarten teacher, kind, trusting, innocent. She believed in love the way children believe in magic, completely. So when Ethan Moore got down on one knee in front of 200 guests, when he promised her the world, she had no reason to doubt him. But weddings aren't where fairy tales begin. Sometimes, they're where nightmares are born. Because what her husband did that night, in the hours after their vows, no ring could excuse, no apology could undo. And by morning, he would wake up to find she'd vanished. But her revenge was only getting started. Before we go any further, there are 3 questions you need to ask yourself. Who is Olivia Carter? And what could possibly drive a woman from walking down the aisle in white lace to disappearing into the shadows by dawn? The second question. What secret did her husband, Ethan, try to bury before saying, I do? Because here's the thing about secrets. They don't stay buried, not when 200 guests are watching, not when vows are spoken out loud, and especially not when someone else knows the truth. And that brings us to the third question, the one that matters most. How does love transform into vengeance overnight? Everyone saw the perfect couple, the Instagram posts, the champagne toasts, the first dance under string lights. But behind their smiles was a lie so deep, so unforgivable, it didn't just break her heart, it shattered her entire world. And when you shatter someone's world, you better be ready for what they become in the wreckage. Because Olivia Carter didn't just walk away, she declared war. The reception was perfect. 200 guests. String lights hanging from oak trees. A live band playing their song. Olivia's grandmother crying happy tears. Ethan's best man delivering a toast that had everyone laughing and clapping. They cut the cake. They danced. She rested her head on his shoulder and whispered, I can't believe you're mine. He kissed her forehead and said, forever. By 11 o'clock, the guests had started to leave. Rice was thrown. Sparklers were lit. They drove to the hotel in a vintage car with Just Married painted on the back window. The suite was beautiful, rose petals on the bed, champagne on ice, soft music playing from somewhere she couldn't see. Olivia stood by the window, still in her dress, looking out at the city lights. She felt like she was floating. Like nothing could touch this moment. And then her phone buzzed. She almost didn't check it. It was late. It was her wedding night. But something made her reach for it anyway. A message from a number she didn't recognize. No words, just a video file. Her finger hovered over the screen. A part of her knew. Some instinct deep in her chest was screaming not to open it, to delete it, to throw the phone out the window and pretend it never existed. But she opened it anyway. And the moment she pressed play, her entire world collapsed. It was Ethan, still in his tux, the same tux he'd worn when he said "I do" just hours earlier, the same one he'd danced with her in, the same one he'd promised forever in. But he wasn't alone. There was a woman, blonde, beautiful, laughing, her hand on his chest, his lips on her neck. The video was shaky like it was filmed in secret, but there was no mistaking what she was seeing. The timestamp in the corner read 5 hours earlier. 5 hours. While Olivia was getting ready with her bridesmaids, while her mother was helping her into her dress, while she was writing him a note that said, "I can't wait to be your wife." He was with someone else. The video kept playing. She wanted to stop it. She wanted to throw the phone across the room, but she couldn't move. She couldn't breathe. And then she heard his voice. "This doesn't change anything. I'll marry her. I'll do what I'm supposed to do. But you and I, this doesn't end." The woman laughed. "Poor Olivia, she has no idea, does she? She doesn't need to know. She never will." The video ended. Olivia stood there in her wedding dress, rose petals at her feet, champagne going flat on the table, and felt something inside her break that could never be put back together. It wasn't just infidelity. It wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't even just betrayal. It was planned. It was filmed. It was shared. Someone wanted her to see this. Someone wanted her to know that the man she just married, the man she'd trusted with every piece of her heart, had made a fool of her. On the most important day of her life, she looked at the ring on her finger, the same ring he'd saved 6 months to buy, the same ring she'd stared at every morning with a smile. It felt like poison now. Behind her, the hotel room door opened. Ethan walked in, loosening his tie, that same charming smile on his face. "Hey, beautiful. Sorry that took so long. Had to take care of something with the venue. You ready for the best night of our lives?" She turned to face him. Her eyes were dry. No tears, not yet. She held up the phone. "Who is she?" The smile faltered, just for a second, but it was enough. "Liv, I don't know what you're... Who is she?" He looked at the screen, and for the first time in 3 years, she saw him lose control. The color drained from his face. His mouth opened, closed. No words came out. "Olivia, I can explain. This isn't what it looks like. I swear to God, You swear to God?" Her voice was so calm it scared even her. "You just swore to God in front of 200 people that you'd love me, honor me, be faithful to me. And 5 hours before that, you were with her." "It was a mistake, a stupid, meaningless mistake. I love you. I married you. Doesn't that prove you married me because it was convenient, because I was safe, because I believed every lie that came out of your mouth?" He reached for her. She stepped back. "Don't touch me. Liv, please, we can fix this. We can work through this. It's our wedding night. Don't let this ruin..." "Ruin what? The fairy tale? The perfect love story? You already did that, hours ago, with her." She set the phone down on the table. She slipped the ring off her finger and placed it next to the champagne. And then she walked toward the door. "Where are you going?" She didn't answer. "Olivia, wait. You can't just leave. We need to talk about this. We need to..." She opened the door and looked back at him one last time. "I don't need to do anything. Not anymore." And she walked out. Down the hallway, past the elevator, down the stairs, through the lobby where the concierge tried to congratulate her. She pushed through the front doors into the rain. No coat, no shoes, still in her wedding dress. The white fabric clung to her skin as the water soaked through. Her hair fell in wet strands around her face. But she didn't stop. She walked until her feet bled, until the sun started to rise, until the city woke up around her and she realized she had nowhere to go. Because the life she'd built, the future she'd planned, the person she thought she was marrying, it was all gone. By the time Ethan woke up the next morning, she'd disappeared. No note. No explanation. Just an empty hotel room and a ring on the table. To understand how it all fell apart, you need to know how it began. Olivia Carter was ambitious, creative, a dreamer who turned her passion into purpose when she opened a small art studio in downtown Chicago. She taught painting classes to kids on weekends. She believed in second chances, in seeing the good in people, in love that lasted. And then she met Ethan Moore. Ethan was 31, charming in that effortless way that makes everyone in the room lean in a little closer. An entrepreneur who built his tech startup from nothing. The kind of man who always knew the right thing to say, who never seemed to lose control, who made you feel like you were the only person in the world when he looked at you. They met 3 years earlier at a gallery opening in Chicago. She was showcasing her work. He was there for business, or so he said. But the moment their eyes met across that crowded room, something shifted. He told her she had the most beautiful smile he'd ever seen. She told him he was full of himself. They laughed. And just like that, it started. Two dreamers who believed in forever. Their first date was a walk along Lake Michigan that lasted until sunrise. Their second was dinner that turned into dancing in an empty parking lot. By the 3rd month, he had a drawer at her apartment. By the 6th, she had a key to his place. Everyone said they were perfect together. Her friends adored him. His family welcomed her with open arms. They finished each other's sentences. They talked about the future like it was already written. And when Ethan proposed on the rooftop of the building where they first met, with 200 fairy lights and a ring that took him 6 months to save for, Olivia didn't hesitate. She said yes before he even finished the question. The wedding planning was a blur of cake tastings and dress fittings and late nights addressing invitations by hand. She wrote her vows 3 times because she wanted them to be perfect. She cried when her mother helped her into the dress on the morning of the wedding. This was it. This was everything she'd ever wanted. But here's what no one tells you about love. It's not the big moments that reveal who someone really is. It's the small ones. The ones you almost miss. Like the way Ethan always kept his phone face down on the table. The way he'd step outside to take certain calls, his voice dropping to a whisper. The way he'd smile at her when he came back inside, like nothing had happened. She told herself it was work, that entrepreneurs are always busy, always stressed, always one call away from the next big deal. She told herself she was being paranoid, that love means trust, that she had no reason to doubt him. But doubt has a way of creeping in through the cracks you refuse to see. Like that night, 2 weeks before the wedding, when his phone buzzed on the kitchen counter while he was in the shower. Just a glimpse of the screen. A woman's name she didn't recognize. A message that made her stomach drop. Don't forget what we planned. She stared at those 5 words for what felt like an eternity. Her hand hovered over the phone. She could unlock it. She could read the rest. She could ask him. But she didn't. Because sometimes we're more afraid of the truth than the lies we tell ourselves to avoid it. So she set the phone back down. She took a breath. She convinced herself it was nothing. And she walked down the aisle 2 weeks later believing that forever was just beginning. But sometimes, forever ends faster than it begins. He called her 37 times. She didn't answer. He showed up at her apartment. She wasn't there. He called her friends, her family, anyone who might know where she'd gone. No one had seen her. And when the police came looking for her the next day, filing a missing persons report at his frantic request, they had no idea they weren't searching for a victim. The news broke the next morning. Local bride vanishes hours after wedding ceremony, family desperate for answers. And there he was, Ethan Moore, standing in front of cameras, his eyes red and swollen, his voice breaking as he begged for her return. "Olivia, if you're watching this, please come home. I love you. Whatever happened, whatever I did, we can fix it. Just please, let me know you're safe." He looked devastated, broken, like a man whose world had just been torn apart. The reporters ate it up. "Mr. Moore, do you have any idea why your wife would leave?" He shook his head, wiping his eyes. "No. Everything was perfect. We were so happy. I don't understand what could have made her run." Run. That's the word he used. Like she was a scared animal instead of a woman with a reason. By that afternoon, the story had spread everywhere. Social media was flooded with theories. Some people felt sorry for him. Others weren't so sure. "Something doesn't add up," one comment read. "Who leaves their own wedding without taking anything?" Because that was the strange part. Olivia's car was found 2 days later parked on the side of a highway 30 miles outside the city. The doors were unlocked. The keys were in the ignition. Her phone was on the passenger seat, battery dead. But there was no sign of her. The police treated it like a missing persons case. They searched the surrounding area. They checked traffic cameras. They interviewed anyone who might have seen her. Nothing. Ethan gave them access to everything. Her laptop, her emails, her bank accounts. He cooperated fully, played the role of the worried husband perfectly. But there was one person who wasn't buying it. Rachel Torres, Olivia's best friend since college, the maid of honor who'd helped her pick out the dress, who'd held her hand during the rehearsal dinner, who knew her better than anyone. Rachel knew something was wrong the moment she heard Olivia was missing. Not because Olivia left, but because of how Ethan was acting. "He's lying," she told the detectives. "I know he is. Olivia wouldn't just disappear. Not like this. Ma'am, we understand you're upset, but Mr. Moore has been nothing but cooperative. That's the problem. He's too cooperative, too calm, like he's playing a part." They didn't listen, so Rachel started digging on her own. She went through old text messages, social media posts, photos from the wedding, anything that might give her a clue. And then she found something. A message Olivia had sent her 3 weeks before the wedding, late at night. Just 3 words. "I saw something." Rachel had responded asking what she meant, but Olivia never replied. At the time, Rachel thought maybe she'd sent it by accident. But now, looking at those words again, they felt like a warning. Meanwhile, Ethan's life was starting to unravel in ways no one could explain. It started small. An email to his business partners with attachments he didn't send. Photos of him and a blonde woman, dates, timestamps, hotel receipts. His partners called an emergency meeting. "What is this, Ethan? Who is she?" "I don't know where those came from. Someone's trying to sabotage me. This is because of Olivia. I know it is." But the emails kept coming, not just to his partners, to his investors, his clients, his family. Every secret he'd buried was being dragged into the light. Then his bank accounts started getting drained, small amounts at first, a few hundred here and there, then thousands, tens of thousands. "Someone's hacking me," he told the police. "Someone's destroying my life. Do you have any idea who would want to do this?" He hesitated. "I think it might be connected to Olivia's disappearance. Maybe whoever took her is coming after me too." But the detectives were starting to have their doubts. Because the more they dug into Ethan's life, the more things didn't add up. The business deals that were too good to be true. The offshore accounts he'd never mentioned. The woman named Claire Dawson who worked at his company and suddenly quit the day after the wedding. "We'd like to ask you about Claire Dawson," the lead detective said during one of their interviews. Ethan's jaw tightened. "What about her?" "You had a relationship with her." "That was years ago. It didn't mean anything. She quit the day after your wedding. Don't you find that strange? I don't know why she quit. I wasn't exactly in the right headspace to keep track of HR decisions. The detective leaned forward. Mr. Moore, was your wife aware of your history with Ms. Dawson? Ethan's face went pale. No, and it wasn't relevant. It was over. Are you sure about that? Because we have phone records showing you called her 17 times the week of your wedding. The room went silent. Ethan opened his mouth, closed it. No answer came. Meanwhile, anonymous emails continued to flood Ethan's world. Business deals collapsed overnight. Investors pulled out. His company's stock plummeted. And then one morning, something different arrived. Not an email, a package, left on his doorstep with no return address. Inside was a USB drive and a note written in handwriting he'd know anywhere. Olivia's. The note said just one thing. You should have never hurt her. Ethan's hands shook as he plugged the drive into his laptop. A single video file appeared on the screen. He clicked it. And there she was, Olivia, alive, sitting in a chair in a room he didn't recognize. Her hair was different, shorter. Her eyes were cold in a way he'd never seen before. She didn't say hello. She didn't explain where she was. She just smiled and said 4 words that made his blood run cold. Did you miss me? The video cut to black. Ethan stared at the screen, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might burst. Because in that moment, he realized something he should have known from the beginning. Olivia Carter wasn't missing. She was hunting, and he was the prey. Rachel didn't give up. While the police chased ghosts and Ethan cried on camera, Rachel followed a thread no one else saw. A wire transfer, $20,000, sent 3 days before the wedding to a private investigator in Brooklyn. One phone call, one meeting. And suddenly, Rachel was standing on Pier 47 staring at someone she thought was gone forever. Olivia, alive, hair dyed dark, eyes colder than Rachel had ever seen them. They didn't hug, they didn't cry. Rachel just whispered, "What did you do?" Olivia smiled. "Come with me." The apartment was small, empty except for a laptop, a bed, and one wall that made Rachel's stomach turn. Photographs of Ethan, documents, timelines, bank statements, and in the center a contract with 2 signatures at the bottom. Ethan Moore, Claire Dawson. "What is this?" Rachel breathed. Olivia stepped closer to the wall, her voice eerily calm. "This is the truth. Ethan didn't just cheat on me, Rachel. He married me to steal from me." Rachel's eyes went wide. "What?" "My father left me $10 million when he died. But there was a clause. If I left the marriage or filed for divorce within 5 years, my husband would inherit everything. My father thought it would protect me from gold diggers." She laughed bitterly. "It did the opposite." "So Ethan found out about the clause 6 months into our relationship. He and Claire planned the whole thing. The proposal, the wedding, the affair. They were going to stage the betrayal, film it, send it to me on our wedding night so I'd leave in anger. The moment I walked out that door, the inheritance would transfer to him. Then he'd split it with her." Rachel felt the room spin. "You're saying he never loved you?" "Not for a second. I was a $10 million paycheck. That's all I ever was." "But how did you—" "I found texts between them 3 weeks before the wedding. I hired the investigator. I learned everything, and I realized something." Olivia turned, her eyes burning. "If I confronted him, he'd just find another way. If I called off the wedding, I'd look crazy. So I let it happen. I walked down that aisle knowing exactly what he planned to do. The video was sent by someone I hired. I needed proof. I needed the world to see what he did. And then I disappeared before he could control the narrative." Rachel shook her head, backing toward the door. Liv, this is insane. You've been destroying his life for 3 weeks. He tried to destroy mine first. He staged a betrayal on my wedding night to steal my father's legacy. So now I'm taking everything from him, his business, his reputation, his freedom. And when there's nothing left, when he's as broken as he wanted me to be, then I'll walk away. Rachel stared at her best friend and barely recognized her. What happened to you? Olivia's smile was sharp as glass. He did. And in that moment, Rachel understood. This wasn't revenge. This was survival, because Olivia Carter had been buried on her wedding night. What rose from the ashes was something else entirely. Something Ethan should have been terrified of from the start. Olivia didn't just want Ethan to hurt, she wanted him erased. It started with the media. An anonymous tip to investigative journalists. Documents they couldn't ignore. Bank records showing years of financial fraud. Forged contracts. Money laundering through shell companies. Investors who'd been lied to. Clients who'd been scammed. Within 48 hours, every major news outlet had the story. Tech entrepreneur Ethan Moore under investigation for fraud and embezzlement. Federal agents raid offices overnight. His face was everywhere, not as the grieving groom anymore, as the criminal he'd always been. His business partners fled, his board of directors resigned, his company's stock crashed so hard it was worthless by noon. And that brings us back to where we started. Ethan sitting in his empty office watching everything he'd built turn to ash, knowing exactly who was behind it. He was arraigned. Bail set at $5 million he no longer had. The trial was scheduled for 6 months out. His lawyers told him he was looking at 15 to 20 years. Everything he'd worked for, everything he'd lied for, everything he'd destroyed Olivia for, gone. Meanwhile, Rachel received a letter, handwritten, no return address. She opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a single page, Olivia's handwriting. By the time you read this, I'll be gone, really gone this time. I'm not running, I'm not hiding, I'm just done. You're going to ask me if it was worth it, if destroying him brought me peace. The truth? I don't know. Revenge doesn't heal you. It just makes the pain useful. He made me a villain, so I decided to play the part perfectly. But I'm tired now, Rachel. Tired of being angry. Tired of being someone I don't recognize. Tell my family I'm sorry. Tell them I love them. And tell them not to look for me. This is the only way I can start over. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when you should have. Love always. Live. Rachel read that letter 3 times before she finally let herself cry. Because she knew Olivia was right. There was no going back, not for either of them. Months passed. Ethan's trial came and went. He was convicted on 12 counts of fraud, sentenced to 18 years. He'd be eligible for parole in 10. But prison wasn't the worst part. The worst part was knowing that somewhere out there, Olivia was alive, free, starting a new life while his rotted away behind bars. He thought about her every day, wondered where she was, what name she was using, if she ever thought about him. And then, one ordinary Tuesday morning, a guard handed him an envelope that had arrived in the mail. No return address, just his name and inmate number written in elegant script. He opened it slowly, his heart pounding for reasons he couldn't explain. Inside was a single card, cream-colored, embossed. A wedding invitation. No names, no date, no location. Just 7 words printed in gold lettering. Till death do us part. Ethan's hand started shaking. He flipped the card over. Nothing. He checked the envelope. Empty. He looked up at the guard. Who sent this? No idea. It was already processed by the time it got to me. Ethan stared at that invitation until the lights went out that night. And even in the darkness, those words burned in his mind. because he finally understood what Olivia had known all along. Some promises can't be broken. They can only be turned into weapons. And the vow he'd made on their wedding night, the one he'd never meant to keep, had just become the very thing that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Somewhere, in a city he'd never find, Olivia Carter stood by a window overlooking the ocean. She wasn't crying, wasn't smiling, just watching the waves crash against the shore. And for the first time in months, she felt something close to peace. Not because she'd won, but because she'd finally let go. He took her wedding night. She took his empire. But revenge never comes without a cost. And both of them would spend the rest of their lives paying it. She wanted love. He gave her lies. And in the end, both of them lost themselves to vengeance. So here's the question I want you to ask yourself. What would you have done in her place? Would you forgive, walk away, and let karma handle it? Or would you do exactly what Olivia did and burn his entire world to the ground? Drop a comment right now. Tell me, forgive or destroy? And if you thought this story was dark, you need to hear what